Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Father Son Packers podcast, your source for Packers news, notes, and analysis. My name is Tommy, and I'm one of your hosts, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, my dad, Matt. Dad, how you doing?
Doing all right. We are here on a Friday morning, and I'm still looking for if there's any Packers news today.
Yep, just trolling
as
through
I'm
Twitter.
Talking to you right now. I'm scrolling the Twitter as we're talking to you right now, just a little behind the scenes.
Command R, Command R, Command R, Command Shift R, just over and over, reload. Soon, there will be more news, Dad. You just got to stay vigilant. If you don't stay vigilant, no one will. But anyway, we are here today to preview the Packers' upcoming game against the Rams on Sunday. Packers are currently 2-2, sitting, I believe, at the bottom of the NFC North because of conference record tiebreakers. Because we are 0-2 versus the NFC. Yes. I was going to say 2-0 versus.
This is a weird start.
Well, I was looking at it. I was like, so we're 2-0 versus the AFC South. Not great. Not great when you think about it that way. 0-2 versus everyone else. But anyway, a lot to be still excited for about the Packers, though, especially this coming weekend. But we'll be previewing all of that just now. But before we get to any of that, just wanted to pitch a couple of things. If you like what you hear, subscribe. We would really appreciate it. Leave a review, 5 stars. Leave a comment. We would really appreciate that as well. We love talking with anyone from Packers land, any Packers fans, best fan base in the world. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or even on YouTube if you want to check us out there. Once again, subscribe, leave a comment. And then follow us on Twitter at FatherSonPacker. We tweet out whenever we have new episodes out. We also tweet out stats that we find when we're doing research for these episodes, updates on roster moves, injury reports, content from other Packers content creators that we enjoy. One-stop shop at everything Titletown. But Dad, that is the spiel. Should we just get into this and start off with the injury report?
Yeah, we might as well. There's a bit to go over here on both sides.
Yeah, a bit to go over on both sides. Let's start with the Packers side, though, and just kind of going through it. Jair Alexander, after missing last week's game and not practicing on Wednesday, was a limited participant in practice Thursday. We don't have Friday's practice report yet. It's not going to come out till this afternoon, unfortunately, but we're going based off Thursdays. But he was a limited participant Thursday with that groin injury that kept him out last week. Kenny Clark has a toe injury, but he was limited Thursday after not participating in practice on Wednesday. Edgerrin Cooper, now this is where I start to get a little bit worried. He has a hip injury, which he had earlier in the offseason as well. He was limited Wednesday, but then did not participate Thursday. So it's going to be important to keep our eye on Friday. And obviously never ideal when someone's moving backwards, Romeo Doubs has a personal reason that he did not practice on Thursday. From what Matt LaFleur was saying, it sounds like he might end up missing Sunday, but they don't know. So we're going to keep an eye on that going forward. Once again, check out at FatherSonPacker on Twitter for all the latest injury updates up to the second, up to the minute. I'm on Twitter a lot, probably more than I should be. But anyway, Jonathan Ford has been designated to return off of IR. After 4 weeks on IR, they opened his 21-day practice window, so he could come back either next week or the week after, I believe. Elton Jenkins, with a knee injury, didn't practice on Wednesday, but was limited on Thursday. Jordan Love finally logging his first full participant practice since having that knee injury in Brazil. So good to see him progressing. Jordan Morgan back practicing as well, so limited both days. Carrington Valentine back as well with that ankle injury. He was limited both days. And then 3 players, Luke Musgrave, Christian Watson, and Devontae Wyatt, all DNPs. So they have not practiced either Wednesday or Thursday. Dad, anything standing out to you from that Packers side of the injury report? I think the thing that I'm maybe most concerned about is Cooper and Wyatt missing this game because the spine of this defense looking a little bit thin with neither of them playing.
Yeah, Wyatt was kind of expected, and we still don't know how long he's going to be out. There has not actually been any real announcement.
No update at all.
What the nature of his ankle injury is. Cooper's a little surprising and concerning that he didn't practice. I wasn't expecting that. Romeo Doubs out for a personal reason, and LaFleur made it sound like there's a decent chance he wouldn't play.
Yeah, they said day to day, like we'll take it.
Yeah, so we don't know we haven't heard anything. It's a private matter, whatever it is. So hopefully it's nothing too serious. So it'd be nice to get Valentine back.
Yeah,
and Jair. We'll see what
or even one of them
goes.
Even one of them back would be
even
nice.
One of them would be nice. Yeah, we definitely could tell when they were both out last week.
Yeah, but speaking of injuries, there are some on the Rams side as well. Should we move over to those?
Yeah, they've been hard hit for the season. Some of them are not even on the injury report because the players are
on IR.
On IR.
Yeah, they have a large number of players out. Obviously, everyone knows Puka Nakua is on IR. He's not going to play this game. Cooper Kupp is apparently not going to play in this game either, at least not expected to play in this game. They're missing also their center and left guard. Steve Avila and Jonah Jackson are on IR. And then Larry Murchison, defensive end, did not participate in practice on Thursday. And then their starting corner, Darius Williams, has been limited, but he was a full participant Thursday. And Demarcus Robinson, one of their other receivers, was limited, but is also a full participant. So the main things to keep an eye on for them are no Kupp, no Nakua, and two of their interior offensive linemen most likely missing this game, right, Dad? Anything else you wanted to touch on there?
I think that's the big thing is their receivers and offensive line for the Rams.
Yeah, exactly. And it's they've been really banged up. They've probably been the most injured team so far this year, right? Safe to say?
That could be right, especially when you consider like high-profile players. They had two potential superstar wide receivers, and both of them are out for an extended amount of time.
It did transition well when you were like, oh, hopefully we have Valentine or Jair back. I'm like, honestly, just one, given that, they're missing they're missing two of their receivers. We're missing two of our corners. Kind of feels like a wash, but ideally we'd have, both Jair and Valentine back in this game. But Dad, yeah, that's the injury report. It's pretty lengthy on the Packers side, but most of these players are limited at least. So there is at least that. Anything else you wanted to touch on there before we move into the meat and potatoes of our game preview?
Yeah, so we could move on to the meat and potatoes.
Okay, we'll take it away.
So the game is Sunday afternoon in LA at SoFi Stadium at 1:25 California time, so 3:25 Lambeau. Per BetMGM, the Packers are favored by 3.5 points on the road with an over-under of 48.5 for an implied score of 26-23.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised the Packers are favored by so much. I was thinking maybe this would just be a pick'em, this given the Packers are on the road, but we'll take it, I guess. But Dad, let's move on to what is going on with the Rams. They're a team that is 1-3 right now. One win against the San Francisco 49ers. Obviously, we've already talked about they're very banged up.
Yeah, that's kind of been the theme of the season is the banged up. But they did squeak out that very surprising win against the Niners. I don't think anybody expected that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think it was like
only win of the year.
Yeah, I think it was a 93% win probability at one point for the Niners, and the Rams somehow made a miraculous comeback to get their one win of the year. Last week, they lost to the Bears I believe also, actually, I'm not sure about that one. That one
in Chicago.
In Chicago, thank you.
So they've lost at Detroit, lost at Arizona, won at home against San Francisco, and lost at Chicago.
Yeah, and played Detroit close, then got blown out by Arizona, obviously, after some injuries. They were missing a lot of players in that game. Come back, losing most of the game against San Francisco, win that one, and then last week lose to the Bears in Chicago. A bit of a defensive struggle in that one a bit. But Dad, what else has been going on in Rams world? What's been going on with them? How's their offense looking? How's their defense looking? What are some of the numbers telling us there?
Right, so looking at their kind of offensive and defensive production using points per drive, because, football is a turn-based sport. You don't just get to keep racking up points over and over again before your opponent gets a chance.
Yeah, we like points per drive because, if anyone watches the NBA, they use offensive rating, which is points per 100 possessions, or defensive rating, points per 100 possessions. Because, teams that are going really fast, you're going really fast to score, but, if you have a lot of drives, you're going to score more.
Your opponent has a lot of drives.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's, the 1-to-1. But yeah, points per drive, they're doing it well, all things considered, given the fact that they're missing, two receivers, two star receivers. And, that's just a testament to, I think, Stafford and McVay and the combined brain power of the two of them.
Yeah, I was a little surprised by some of this. So on offense, they're only 16th in points per drive, middle of the pack, but they're 4th in yards per drive. This is from FTN Fantasy. So that really surprised me compared to the Packers, who are 15th in points per drive and 12th in yards per drive.
Yeah, I do want to point out, though, just yards per drive. I think some of the Packers' yards per drive stuff, if you get a lot of turnovers, you're going to have a lot of short fields.
Yeah, a lot of short fields.
You're going to have. So I think that might be why Packers' 12th in yards per drive is maybe a little bit lower. But yeah, the Rams' offense has looked really, all things considered, really good, given, all the playing with essentially two hands behind your back at times.
Yeah, and I don't know what the Rams' starting field position is. That's something I did look at because they have a big discrepancy between points per drive and yards per drive. Mm-hmm. They're really good at they're scoring fewer points than you predict on their yardage.
Yeah, but their offense has been good, but Dad, their defense has been a struggle.
It's the defense,
so far.
However. So they're probably maybe getting, long fields all the time. But on defense, they are 31st in points per drive given up and 31st in yards per drive given up. So the Packers are middle of the pack, 13th and 14th. So middle of the road defense, that's,
yeah,
in some ways an improvement.
Yeah, the defense has been troublesome. I don't know how to best describe it, but it has not done well.
What's surprising is that we've been actually really good in run defense in some ways.
Well, yeah, I think, what was it? A couple of people have written some articles about how they fixed the run defense but have broken the pass rush to do it. It's like, okay, don't know if that's the trade-off I'd love to make. But I would like to be good at both, ideally, but, it's a long season. But that
in net points per drive, the Rams are 29th and the Packers are 14th.
Yeah, and then by DVOA, which takes into account, opponent strength, which is always a little, this early in the season, DVOA can be a little bit high variance week to week. It just changes a lot.
It doesn't settle in until, I forget, it was like 6 or 7 weeks before you really get kind of a stable...
just for reference, how are they sitting so far at DVOA? Because that is, one of our favorite metrics, because it does take into account, strength of schedule. And, they've played some pretty good teams so far. They played the Lions, they played the Niners. Cardinals are frisky, Bears are 2-2. How are they looking on that metric?
So by DVOA, the Rams are 16th on offense, and the Packers are 3rd.
Yep.
However, the Rams are, as you might suspect from their per drive metrics, they're 31st in defensive DVOA, and the Packers are 19th. Now, in special teams, the Rams are 17th, so middle pack, and the Packers are still,
28th. Yep.
28th.
Yep. The thing is, I actually, their special teams has actually been, in my opinion, pretty good. Outside of the kicking. Outside of the kicking.
Outside of the field goal kicking.
The field goal kicking, yeah, because the kick coverage and the punt coverage have actually been pretty good. They haven't gotten many chances at returns, so I'm not really... It is what it is. They've had like maybe 2 punt returns and like 1 kick return all year. The problem is just the reason they're at 28th is because they can't make a freaking field goal right now. But anyway, I digress. We'll talk more about that later. But Dad, let's move on.
Should we talk about your reverse jinx that you're trying?
Yes, my reverse jinx. Listeners, I have picked up Braden Arvison in my fantasy leagues. I normally don't pick up Packers kickers because I don't want to jinx them. But given the fact that that's clearly not working, we're going with the opposite strategy. He is on my roster. He is starting. If he has a good week, you'll
take all the credit.
I will take all the credit. Yes,
but if it's a bad week, it was he
had a bad week anyway. I had no effect. Yeah, I was gonna say there was no impact by my actions if he has a bad week. But anyway, Dad, let's move on to more thoughts on our game. And let's start with our first section we always start with, which is Hey Now, Play Nice, where we say, some things that the other team is good at. Now, this is easier when it's not a divisional rival. But Dad, what are some things that the Rams do well that you think are like, the standouts of their team?
So something I was digging around, and I was a little surprised to find this. They have some good young pass rushers.
Mm-hmm. Jared Verse is having a really good year so far as a rookie.
He's not the only one. Second-year interior defensive lineman Kobe Turner is 3rd in the league with 18 pressures, according to PFF, and is 14th in ESPN's pass rush win rate for defensive tackles. Rookie Braden Fiske, I'm guessing?
I think it's Fisk.
Is it Fisk?
I think it's just Fisk.
So, not spelled the same, but like Kingpin?
Yep, Wilson.
Is 7th among defensive tackles in the league with 13 pressures and is 12th in ESPN's pass rush win rate for interior defensive linemen. And rookie Jared Verse, as you mentioned, he's 12th among all edges with 17 pressures and is 8th among edges in ESPN's pass rush win rate. So they actually got a spicier pass rush than I realized. I haven't really been paying attention to that before. It was only when I started looking up the individual players to find out what they're good at. It's like, they got some guys to worry about.
Yeah, and if you look at PFF's pass rush win rate, Verse is actually all the way up at 2nd. He's behind only Aiden Hutchinson. It's the only one he's behind. And he hasn't had a whole lot of luck finishing these plays yet. He is getting to the quarterback a lot, but just not quite getting the quarterback down.
I have heard people compare him to
Wyatt. He's got 11 missed
first
tackles.
First and second year Devontae Wyatt.
Yeah, he's got 11 missed tackles through 4 weeks. And so that matchup between him and Zach Tom, I think, is going to be popcorn viewing, appointment viewing. That's going to be something that I'm really keeping my eye on because Tom's had a fantastic start to this season, and Versus having a really good start to his career so far.
Has Tom given up one pressure all season?
Goodness, is it even one? I'm not even sure.
He gave up one last week.
I broke the perfect record.
Yeah, I think so. I think he probably got credited with pressure given up last week based on what I saw on the tape.
Yeah, but that is definitely something I'm keeping my eye on. They have a lot of, nice young pass rushers. These are actually the two youngest teams in the league right now that will be facing off this Sunday. The thing that I wanted to point out, though, that the Rams are also quite good at is their run game has been quite good from a consistency standpoint. So you might look at their yards per carry, simple yards per carry, and be like, what are you talking about? Because they're only averaging 3.7 yards per carry, which is 26th in the league. But if you look at some of the underlying metrics, they are 5th in success rate and 7th in EPA per carry, which has really allowed them to stay ahead of the chains. And you might be wondering, why is that discrepancy so big between their yards per carry and between their success rate? So that basically means that down to down, they are doing well at staying ahead of the chains. But that disparity is really being caused by the fact that they don't really have many explosive runs. So that is the one drawback there. They are 29th in the NFL in explosive runs, explosive run rate, which is runs of 10 yards or more. So they're not getting a whole lot of, 10, 15, 20 yard, like big, just chunk plays in the run game. But down to down, they are very successful, given by that 5th in success rate metric and 7th in EPA per carry. So, they are able to run the ball with Kyron Williams, despite the fact that they have mostly had backup offensive linemen along the interior so far. So that's just something I'm keeping my eye on. They're also, even though they have a backup line, and have had mostly a backup line, I think this is actually probably the healthiest their line has been so far this year when they're playing us, because they're at least going to have both starting tackles.
Right, because they had their starting
left tackle,
right.
Alar
Left
Jackson,
tackle
was suspended for a couple years, or sorry, a couple games, not a couple years.
Yeah.
He's not just getting off the couch now. But they're, even, they're able to run the ball, success rate pretty well. They're not getting stuffed that much. They're actually like 18th in pressure rate allowed, and Stafford is 10th in time to throw. So that was the other thing, is even though they have had mostly backup linemen, they've actually acquitted themselves pretty well, and McVay has been able to coach around them and coach them up pretty well. But that's the nice thing I have to say about the Rams. But Dad, let's transition over to, what are some things that we are nervous about? Some things that the Rams are good at that specifically maybe are tough matchups for the Packers. I have a few of these. What do you have cooking?
So I'll start with sort of down-to-down passing plays, particularly short passing plays of the Rams, so against the Packers defense. Green Bay is 28th in dropback success rate on D. And while they're not great, the Rams are 14th in dropback success rate on offense, and Stafford is 12th amongst quarterbacks in dropback success rate. They're also, Green Bay gives up the 7th most yards of separation to targets on D, according to NFL Pro. And the Packers give up they're only 20th in EPA per play on short passes of less than 10 yards according to NFL Pro, while the Rams are 6th best in EPA per pass on those short passes, so less than 10 air yards per throw, according to NFL Pro. So that's something that they're good at, and we're not so good at covering.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that I think has to do with, the Vikings. This is actually kind of something similar to what I'm nervous about, which is McVay, isolating our linebackers and attacking them. But I think some of that is, they're hitting us with some of these quick out routes. And I think it was Justice Mosqueda pointed out, like Kevin O'Connell. So I'm just kind of what you were saying about, short passes and kind of transitioning to what I was saying. I'm nervous about McVay attacking our linebackers with short passes in some ways, a lot of the time, mostly with short passes. So they don't run a lot of play action. They only run play action on 11.1% of their dropbacks, which is 29th in the league. But I'm worried about our linebackers still getting exposed in the passing game just in other ways. Last week, like I said, Justice Mosqueda pointed out that Kevin O'Connell took out the microscope and zoomed in on Eric Wilson. And then just like that second touchdown, the one to Oliver, where Wilson just can't get out to the flat in time because it's like a condensed split. He's pinched in, and then they just run a little quick out from that, and he just can't cover the space fast enough. And then especially with Cooper, it looks like probably not playing in this game. It's going to be Wilson again. And McVay watched last week's tape. He watched that game and was like, oh, y'all are exposing their linebackers in the passing game on quick outs? We can do that. Like, we can have Colby Parkinson run those. So we can have we can have these guys run those all day long. Like that's easy peasy. Like I could, if he's like, I taught KOC everything you know. I can do this. But yeah, so that's what I'm nervous about. I'm nervous about him attacking the second level with misdirection, with quick outs. With our linebackers just have not been. How do you feel? Quick aside, how do you feel about how the linebackers have played so far through 4 games? It's not terrible, but it's not good. Is kind of how terrible. I feel.
They've given up some, critical plays.
Yeah.
Long yardage conversions, bad at angles. I'm hoping for more. I'm still hoping for more.
Yeah.
How's that? I'm still hoping for more. I haven't given up yet.
If you had to power rank the play of the 4 linebackers so far, from Quay all the way down to Cooper, how would you rank
I
them?
think Cooper's been playing the best.
I was going to say I think McDuffie's been playing the best.
And then McDuffie.
I would go
Quay, then Wilson.
I would go McDuffie, then Cooper, then Wilson, then Quay. Wilson at least had that one awesome game. The rest of them have not been very good, but he's getting a lot of bumps from that Colts game.
Amazing pick.
Well, the Colts game, he had the pick, the forced fumble, and defending the option on both 3rd and short.
Both the quarterback and the
so he gets bumped out of 4th place by just being that good in that one game. But aside from that, he hasn't been great. But Dad, anything else you have been nervous about for this game that you wanted to touch on?
I'm a little nervous, but this isn't necessarily Rams specific. I'm worried a little bit about the Packers down lack of success. Their success rate on offense. According to RBSDM, Green Bay is 29th in rush success rate and 26th in pass success rate, despite having an overall rush EPA of 17th and a dropback EPA of 11th. So it seems like they've been reliant on big plays, but they profiled a struggle when relying on sustained drives, requiring consistent gains. And so if the Rams can scheme away those big plays, there's a chance that Green Bay will stall out on drives, either because they, can't convert, or they get self-inflicted, penalty errors or drops or something.
That's so strange. I looked it up because I didn't believe you. They really are that low in success rate. It doesn't feel that bad.
It's really bad in success rate. So it seems like their EPA is being driven by big plays.
Yeah, I mean, they have actually, I'll talk about later, Green Bay is leading the league in explosive pass rate of passes of 20 yards or more. But
yeah, so I'm a little concerned about the down-to-down success. But the Rams are actually not that good.
On defense. You can just say on defense at anything.
It's true.
I'm sorry.
They're not that good at preventing big plays, but that may be because they're not good at anything. So in EPA per pass on passes over 20 yards, they're 3rd worst. Mm-hmm. So they're not good at stopping those big plays.
They also allow the highest, I think. I'll get to it later. We'll get to it later. You're giving away all my good nuggets, Dad. You're giving them all away.
But it's something I've been worried about, and it's like, well, this isn't really this game specific for the Packers, but I thought I'd bring it up anyway.
Yeah, and the success rate has not been as good. Josh Jacobs' success rate last week was pretty good, but Emmanuel Wilson's was no good. So I guess we'll just see going forward. But Dad, anything else you're nervous about, or should we move over to maybe some sunnier skies,
Let's
bluer
move
skies?
over to some exploitable weaknesses, because they've got some.
Yeah, the Rams definitely have some exploitable weaknesses that the Packers can take advantage of. I'm going to start with this one because it's kind of a blanket statement, but their defense has just been really bad. It's been really, really bad through 4 weeks. You've already mentioned it. We've already mentioned it. I'm just going to go through some numbers. They're last in EPA per play per NFL Pro, 31st in EPA per dropback, 29th in EPA per carry. They're last in yards per play. They're 30th in success rate, 29th in dropback success rate, and 30th in rushing success rate allowed. Specifically, the Packers should also be able to hit downfield a lot. They have the highest explosive pass rate allowed, and Green Bay have the highest explosive pass rate on offense. So that's just passes of 20 yards. Exactly, passes of 20 yards or more. So Green Bay's been able to hit at an explosive rate. Rams are giving up explosive plays at a record rate, and also are allowing down-to-down success. So pretty much, like, the Packers should be able to do whatever they want on offense. All they have to do is not make crippling mistakes like they have made at other times. So if they can avoid being the 5th most penalized team in the league, which they have been so far this year, if they can avoid turning the ball over 4 times like they did last week, they should be able to do whatever they want on offense as long as they don't shoot themselves in the foot. But yeah, I love usually listing exploitable weaknesses as specific things, but in this one, the Rams defense it's been really bad through 4 weeks.
Yeah, and it's not been like devastated by injuries, I don't think, in the way that the offense has been. It's just bad.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, we talked about they do have some pass rush juice. They're able to do that, but the coverage has just not been there to help them.
Coverage is bad. Yeah, because the pass rush has something there.
But yeah,
but I guess the coverage does not.
That's all we can really ascertain from the numbers is just that, if their pass rush is really good, but the whole defense is very bad, it probably has something to do with the fact that coverage has just not been doing much out there. But Dad, what do you think is an exploitable weakness of the Rams?
So what happens? The pass blocking by the Rams replacement offensive linemen. They are dead last in pass blocking grade on the year by PFF and 21st by ESPN's pass block win rate as a team. Logan Bruss at left guard and Bo Limmer at center in particular have struggled with pass blocking grades of 23.3 and 41.8 respectively.
23.3 is diabolical. It's
Yeah,
out of 100,
what you
by
have
the
to
way.
It's the average grade is supposed to be 60. So I don't know how many missed blocks and assignments. I didn't dig into what they're doing. Are they getting beat one-on-one? Are they like the worst team picking up stunts? Do they have just blown assignments? I'm not quite sure what the deal is.
The pass rush has to do something in this game. I know I mentioned that, Stafford's time to throw is still 10th. They're actually still 18th in pressure rate allowed. But that interior, like the Packers should be able to take advantage of that.
Yeah. What I've written here is like, this needs to be another get right pass rush game like the Titans.
Yeah. And I will mention that going forward because I think being able to get the D-line going in this one, it's going to be hard because I think we'd both say Wyatt has
interior pass rusher.
I think you could even take out interior. I mean, he's been their best pass rusher, I would say, just full stop. And it's going to be tough without him in this one. Obviously, I think they should still have the horses to have success there with Kenny Clark, with TJ Slayton, with Carl Brooks, with Colby Wooden probably getting activated for this game. But those guys are going to need to step up in Wyatt's absence. But Dad, any other things that you think of as exploitable weaknesses, or should we move over to how we hope the Packers exploit those weaknesses?
Let's move on to
okay. Well, what do you hope the Packers are doing in this one then?
Well, so we've already kind of talked about this, so I'm just circling back to things over and over again. Attack the Rams downfield, especially the boundary. So they're, as we talked before, they're third worst defense in pass EPA per play on passes over 20 yards or more downfield. But they're also third worst on EPA per pass on wide targets.
Okay. So just outside the number stuff, attacking their corners,
outside the numbers, is something they've been bad at.
Mm-hmm. And I think, unfortunately, that's exactly what Dobbs does well, and that's exactly what Watson does well. So those are it's unfortunate they might not have either of those guys in this game to really attack those spots, right?
Right, and Watson is almost certainly not going to. He's not going to play.
He's not going to play. No.
And Dobbs will have to see.
I guess we'll see if we get an update on the practice report during this. Keep scrolling Twitter, Dad. Keep that Twitter window open while we're recording. See if we got any updates.
It's floating around back there somewhere.
You got any updates yet? No, it doesn't sound like it. Okay. The thing that I hope the Packers do is just find a way to get pressure. We've already kind of talked about it. They should be able to. You're going against a backup center and a backup left guard. You have almost all of your starters. And we know that Stafford is capable of making big-time throws under pressure, and this is why I had just find any way to get pressure, because yes, we do know Stafford is able to make some pretty impressive throws under pressure, but for what it's worth, per PFF, he is the 27th best quarterback by PFF grade this year when pressured, compared to 13th when kept clean. And it's not really that his yards per attempt is going down or anything. He's just been a lot more prone to turnovers this year when pressured. He has the 9th highest turnover-worthy play rate when pressured this year versus 19th highest when kept clean. That turnover-worthy play rate nearly quadruples when he is pressured. So when you pressure him this year, at least, you've been able to force him into turning the ball over. And so that's something where they just need to find a way to do it, whether that's going to more of a 5-man front, whether that's more simulated pressures, whether that's going to a NASCAR front with 4 edge rushers. I don't think we've really seen enough of that. And, that might just be the best way they can actually get pass rush going. Whether that's full on sending blitzes, they just have to find a way to get some pressure on Stafford and force him to some mistakes. And I also want them to give Jacobs more carries. Only 9 carries last game, only 60% of snaps. He's been dynamic whenever he's looked great. He's looked like exactly who you want. He hasn't looked quite like 2022 Josh Jacobs, but he's looked way better than 2023 Josh Jacobs. And once again, I will say this was a signing that I was not that big a fan of. I'll take my wins. I'll take my losses. He's looked much better than I expected him to, and much better than he did last year for certain. And maybe not full on 2022, like we said, rushing leader Josh Jacobs, but he's looked good enough where I'm you got to get him more than, 9 touches in a game. You just have to feed him the ball more.
Yeah, and I was looking up while I was looking, so I saw you already had Jacobs on here, but the Rams are also, their run defense isn't good. They're third to last on stuff rate on defense and fourth to last in EPA per rush. But now there's something that's different. We talked last week about the Vikings, where they're weak up the middle. In contrast to the Vikings, the Rams are decent between the tackles on run D, but are third to last in EPA per rush outside of the tackles. So that again, there may be a place to attack on the run game as well as the pass game is to look for outside runs rather than running up the middle.
Yeah, and because I think especially if you run at some of these edge rushers, maybe you can get them to slow down on the pass rush as well, and get them maybe at least thinking about it because. Like we mentioned,
maybe that's why they're bad. Maybe they're diving inside and leaving the edge open.
Yeah, I mean,
we've seen that. We've seen that before.
I wasn't going to say anything, Dad. I wasn't going to say anything. I was biting my tongue. But yeah, anything else you hope the Packers do? Should we move on to don't take your eye off that guy? Because I had a couple candidates for this one. I'm interested to see what your argument for yours is.
Yeah, so I went to kind of continue the theme I was going on before is Dontavian Wicks.
Player to watch. And by the way, these guys, keep your eye on that, guys, are not necessarily players that we think are going to have. These are either players that we think their performance is really important to the Packers winning, or players who we think might have a big day. And it's not necessarily always like, oh, like we think this player's going to explode. Sometimes like mine is, I'll get to in a second, is like this player needs to play well for the Packers to have like a better chance of winning. But anyway, Dontavian Wicks, what made you pick him?
Well, so with Watson out and with Dobbs maybe play, maybe not. He's their main boundary receiver. Last week he had 13 targets.
Yeah, and only caught 5 of them though, which is
I know he only caught 5.
He needs to be a little more efficient.
He's had a little bit some drop issues this year so far. The Rams are vulnerable downfield and out wide, and we think Wicks is going to have a bigger role. Another guy maybe to keep an eye on, with is Melton.
I was going to say there might be a Melton
speed downfield because one thing that Watson does, even when he's not getting the targets, is he just has gravity out there and pulls safeties in his direction and opens up. Like one of the underneath plays for Reed last week, Watson's going deep, safety goes with him. There's this open spot in the middle of the field.
Yeah, I was wondering, because they're not going to have really, I would say, 2 of their 3 field stretchers. I would say their field stretchers right now are Watson, Musgrave, and Reed. And so they're probably not going to have Watson or Musgrave in this game. So how tight does the field get on offense? Like, are they able to get the Rams to give them a little bit more space? Are they able to get the Rams to respect like the deep ball? Thankfully, the Rams have not defended the deep ball very well, really at all. So maybe you don't need elite field stretching there to hit on some explosive plays. But that was something I was thinking about. And it's a good point that why Wicks is going to be important in this one.
Yeah. I just see there's a recent update from Packers practice. So Dobbs isn't there again today, it looks like.
Okay.
Cooper is going outside, supposedly.
Okay, so at least
Watson, Musgrave, and Wyatt are staying inside.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so you heard it here. You heard it here first. You heard it here.
And Jair and Valentine are practicing today.
Okay, that's good at least. And hopefully they'll have Cooper back and able to get him some reps because he's the 45th overall pick in the draft. These are the linebackers you had when you drafted 2 linebackers. So clearly you thought that they needed to be upgraded. And yet we've still just been going with the same linebackers we had the whole time. And so I think as the season goes on, you'd like to see Cooper and maybe even Hopper kind of transition into maybe playing a bit of a bigger role.
We'll have to wait to see whether those. My guess is there's going to be limited the players who have been limited.
Yeah, I think so too.
But at least going outside and practicing is a
step in the right direction. My player to watch, or don't take your eye off that guy. Oh, sorry. Did you have more you want to say on
No,
this?
I was going to say, who's your player to watch? That's what I was going to say.
My player to watch is Kenny. It's the 3rd straight week I've actually put him here. Actually, no, this might be the 4th straight week. I might have put him as my player to watch every single week, or a player to keep an eye on, because they've needed him to have a good game every single week for the defense to really be dominating, and he hasn't so far. So, week 1, I had him here because I was like, oh, you're going against Cam Jurgens and Mekhi Becton, a guy who is a first-year starter at center. He played guard before, but his first time at center, and a guy who's first time at guard. And then Kenny had, not the best day. Obviously, that field was not very sound, so you can give some accident forgiveness there. Second week, you're going against, a Colts offensive line that's pretty good, but you'd hope he'd have had a better day. And then week 3, you're going against the Titans. I think the whole defensive line really ate in that one, so that was a really good game for all of them. And then week 4, we talked about going against the Vikings. Last week, the interior, like we talked about, the tackles were great. Darisaw and O'Neal, really good tackles. You're going to have trouble getting pressure off the edge. Obviously, you wish they got more than they got, but we knew going into that game that was going to be a tough matchup. But going into that game, we also knew that with Brendel, Bradbury, and Ingram, there should have been a way to dominate the interior, and they just did not. They got no push along the interior. They got no penetration. It was not very impactful throughout the whole day. And so once again, I have Kenny here. Especially with Wyatt out, he's going to have to really step up, and it's been a quiet 4 weeks for him. They extended him this past offseason. I think they expect a little bit more out of him. And I think he obviously expects more out of himself. And he's the player to watch in this one because they need him to get, some instantaneous pressure on Stafford up the middle going against a backup center and a backup left guard who are, struggling so far this year. I think this could be a Kenny breakout game. I hope it is. And they really need it to be.
Yeah. The one thing is Kenny is actually tied for the team lead with 9 pressures, but
slow
no
pressures,
sacks
though.
or hits.
I was going to say they're all slow
hurries.
pressures. Yeah. And they're mostly pocket crushing. Because I believe it was the Colts game he had 4. And I was like, I don't remember a single one of those. So, yeah.
I think he actually had 4 against the Eagles, 3 against the Colts, none against Tennessee, and 2 against the Vikings. But no hits or sacks. Hasn't contacted the quarterback yet.
Yeah, and obviously they just need him to get back there with a little bit more force. But Dad, anything else on don't take your eye off that guy, or should we move on to our final thoughts?
Yeah, we could go into our overtime.
Yeah, overtime. So this is just, got things to talk about that didn't fit into any of our boxes. Dad, what do you want to talk about?
So slot coverage again. Green Bay is second to last, ahead of only Jacksonville in average separation for slot targets.
Yeah, it's not great, but I actually think Keyshawn's been okay. He hasn't been bad, but it's weird because do you follow Aaron Schatz on Twitter? The guy who created DVOA. He is like very high on how Keyshawn Nixon has played so far this year in terms of DVOA, which is surprising to me. But just some food for thought.
Yeah, and the other thing I have is like tackling. Green Bay has actually been a much improved tackling team this year. They're 7th in the league in PFF tackling grade, while the Rams are 26th.
Yeah, I think I think some of that. What do you think that is? Because I actually have noticed the same thing. I think it is having safeties who can tackle helps for certain helps. Because last year you're going from Savage and Ford and Owens, Savage is not a good tackler. Owens and Ford are okay tacklers. But then you're going to McKinney and Bullard, who are much better tacklers. And then you're getting McDuffie on the field a little bit more as well, who I think is, I would say is a plus tackler and probably a better tackler than Campbell was by his last year here.
I also think they're doing a pretty good job of rallying to the ball.
Yeah, I
think you see a lot of pursuit guys coming in to help on tackles, even from far from their starting position.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think they have done a really good job at that as well. And, I think that has helped in some of their run defense metrics as well as having a lot of, hats to the ball, so to speak. My overtime piece, the first one is right guard rotation, ? So Sean Rhyan has looked good. I am as surprised as you are. Sean Rhyan has looked quite good. Adam Stenovich has pointed out that, 2 weeks ago when they played against the Titans, that was Sean Ryan's best game so far of his career, I think he said. And then last week against the Vikings, this was even better than that. They had him as even the best game he's played so far, back-to-back weeks essentially. So Sean Rhyan has looked great in back-to-back weeks. The question is, before Jordan Morgan got hurt, they were doing a full 50-50 rotation at right guard. Pretty much every other series. Do they go back to that? Because Ryan has looked quite good. I think you might just want to stick with Ryan. But at the same time, how do you develop Morgan and get him snaps and get him, better? He's your first round pick. Ideally, you'd like him playing. Yeah, how do you do that and keep Ryan's momentum going? That's just something I'm kind of keeping my eye on because, maybe, Walker's kind of struggled a little. Maybe you rotate Jordan Morgan at left tackle. That feels not good, though, because rotating left tackles, they did it last year. With Walker and Nyman for large stretches. Obviously, that was during the stretch of their schedule where they were playing the worst. So maybe that's not a good idea, not a great example. But Dad, what do you think they're going to do with Morgan, seeing as he's looking like he's coming back from that shoulder injury this weekend?
Yeah, I just say that, looking up, when you talk about Ryan, he's actually the 27th best guard in the league in pass blocking.
Yeah, out of 60. So he's above average,
He's 72.2.
Yeah, no, I'm that's what I'm saying. It's 27th in the league out of 60 guards.
Oh, out of 60. Sorry,
yeah.
I thought you meant 60 as the grade. Yeah.
No.
So he's as the second guard, he's what would be one of the top.
Yeah, no, he's played fantastic
and
this year.
Fifth, so he's actually not just playing, his best ball. He's playing well.
Yeah, he's playing good guard play. He's playing well. And so, but how do you get Morgan snaps? Do you go out of your way to get them, or you just say, "Hey, buddy, you're the sixth guy"? I'm sorry, it is what it is.
I think at this point, it's I don't think you mess with it.
What do you have no thoughts on my rotate him at left tackle? No thoughts on that?
Oh, rotate him at left tackle. That's an interesting because I almost said Wallace again. Walker's been struggling a little bit this year,
specifically with penalties, and also specifically with something we know he's never really been good at, which is run blocking. He has not, graded out well as a run blocker so far. So maybe that's something. Morgan's a better athlete than him, better mover in space. I don't know. These are just thoughts. These are just things I'm thinking about. Because ideally, you take a guy in the first round, you'd like him to contribute year one. But at the same time, injuries have kind of delayed that. But also, maybe it's a good problem to have. Like, hey, the rest of our line is playing so well, we can't get our first round offensive lineman in. It's like, well, boo-hoo for you. I'm sure a lot of teams would love to be in that situation. So I don't know. It's just something I'm kind of thinking about. And then the other thing in overtime is the kicking game. That's all I got. I'm just going to mention it. We are thinking about it. I did want to just throw this out there. I think Bisaccia said in his presser the other day that it was like, he noticed something with his plant foot and he's going to try and change that. And he's had a really good week of practice. And I went back to watching him like, he's kind of, I don't even know. I don't know enough about kicking to like really know, but I was like, he's landing his plant foot really wide and maybe that's making him slice it harder. I don't even know. But it's like making him come across it. I watched him kick like 7 or 8 like over and over and over again, and I was like, I don't know what I'm looking for. Screw this. But anyway, I don't know. I was I don't know why I thought I could just find this based on looking at it. But it did look like he was maybe like pointing out his toe and slicing across of it a little bit.
This is kind of like that he's trick missing with golf where you see where your two toes are lined up, like lay a club on the ground and see where you're actually aimed as opposed to where you think you're aimed.
But that's the thing is he misses it the same way every time. He's slicing it right every single time.
I almost feel like he just needs to kick through it. Just try to hammer it. Stop easing up and trying to steer it.
Exactly.
It's like a putt. You're trying to steer it, and you just hit the ball.
It just all falls apart once you start thinking about the actual motions independently.
Your emotion slows down. It kind of breaks down. You just got to kick through it. Try to kick it into the center of the net.
Actually, no. Try to kick it in the left post and just play the slice. That's my new theory. Play the slice.
Yeah. Well, play the slice into the center of the net.
Also, yes. But anyway, anything else you wanted to touch on there, Dad, or should we move on to the bottom line?
Let's go into the bottom line.
Bottom line, Dad, Rams win if blank.
The Packers can't get any pressure on Stafford.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think they'll give up, even though they've got injured receivers, I think with Stafford, they can make plays, and Kyren Williams is good as well. If they can't get pressure in this game, it could be a long day on defense.
Yeah. I mean, McVay and Stafford will pick you apart. I mean, he's in my opinion, I think Stafford's one of the 5 or 6 best quarterbacks in the league. That's just my opinion. And, combine that with one of the 5 or 6 best play callers in the league, and you got a stew going. But yeah, no. So I got the Rams win if the Packers shoot themselves in the foot again. I would say in the 2 losses the Packers have had, a common theme is the Packers just bungling it. Fantastically bungling it. Whether that's the Eagles game, missing a kick, bunch of penalties, turnover, and just slipping and falling all over the place. Whether it's that, or it's against the Vikings. Once again, a lot of penalties. Once again, several turnovers. Once again, just slipping and falling on your face. If they can just not beat themselves, I would be very happy. But yeah, so that's that. Dad, moving on. Packers win if blank.
I think you just need to stay on schedule on offense. So the Rams are 3rd best in the league in EPA per play on defense on 3rd and over 7 yards, but are last in the league in defensive EPA on 3rd down and between 3 and 6 yards. So I think they just need to stay on schedule, and they'll be able to keep moving the ball, not give themselves a bunch of 3rd and longs.
Yeah, and we talked about, the Rams defense isn't great in success rate either, so they should just be able to methodically move the ball down the field. I've got Packers win if they can just, run the ball successfully and play a clean game, which is kind of similar to, the other way around, but who cares? Who's really keeping track? But yeah, if the Packers can just play a clean game in this one and just limit the penalties on offense, I would just be a lot happier. If they can make their kicks, if they can just execute at like the easy
simple
things,
simple things. Because you feel like there's so many drives where they make progress in the drive and all of a sudden it's 3rd and long or second and long because of a holding penalty or something.
Well, it's like Jordan Love will roll out of the pocket right and rip a 50-yarder downfield, and Jaden Reed will go out of bounds at the 4, and it'll be like, yes, and then immediately holding penalty, first and goal at the 14. Foul start, first and goal at the 19, and then it's like, okay, well, I guess we'll kick a 37-yard field goal. Oh, we missed the 37-yard field goal. It's like, okay, so what was the point of all of this?
Yeah, like leaving points, wherever you leave them. On the field, where the trash can, instead of going up on the board.
I mean, they've been leaving points on the field all over the place because they haven't been good in the red zone. They've been terrible in the red zone.
No, because they keep backing up. That's the problem. It's like they start to get close, and then they back up, and then they get nothing.
They get close, they back up, and they miss the field goal. That's been the red zone recipe so far. But yeah, so that's that. But Dad, let's end here. Score prediction. What do you got?
I have the Packers winning 27-17.
Nice. I got the Packers 24-17. I have not picked the Packers. I actually think I've picked the Eagles, or not the Eagles. Besides the Eagles game where I picked the Packers, I've picked the opposing team 3 straight times. So
you didn't pick the Titans.
I did pick the Titans. I was not convinced about Malik Willis. I didn't believe. I should have believed, clearly. I did not believe, and I should have. Shout out Malik Willis once again for getting us our 2 wins because we really needed them. It looks like we really needed those wins. But anyway, Dad, anything else you wanted to tell our dear listeners, or should we wrap things up here?
I think we can wrap it up. It might be I don't know if it's going to be hot in SoCal.
It hasn't been recently. I was actually thinking, should I go to this game? It's only like an hour and a half drive. It's only 2-hour drive.
You're not that far. I was thinking about that.
Well, because my friends were like, "Oh, Tommy, are you going to the game?" I was like, "Oh yeah, it is in LA. Like that is not actually that far from me." Because I was like, "Oh yeah, they're playing like the Rams in LA." I was like, "Wait, that's pretty much 2 hours."
Drive up there in 2 hours.
Exactly. That's like day trip. That's easy peasy. But anyway, thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Once again, subscribe wherever you are listening, whether that's Spotify, Apple, YouTube. Go subscribe on all 3. We would really appreciate it. Leave a comment, leave a review. But anyway, thank you again so much for listening. Check out @FatherSonPacker for injury updates, roster moves. Whenever these episodes drop, we'll let you know. Content from other content creators. But once again, that's @FatherSonPacker on Twitter. Thank you again so much for listening. We'll be giving you a post game after this next week. I'll be recording that Monday night probably, so check that out Tuesday morning. And until next time, go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.